Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to talk with the people who work behind the scenes to make sure that Milford stays healthy and that we're doing all the right things in our restaurants and even new areas that we hadn't ever discussed before. So why don't we start with introductions?
Paul Mazzucchelli, Health Officer.
Ken Evans, Health Board Member.
Lenny Izzo, Chairman.
So now the chairman's the baby of the group,
Yes, sir.
and I always get a kick out of the youngest serving member of our Board of Health is, how many years on the job?
35 years old today.
35 years. It's pretty amazing that you've kept the group together that long.
We got a very unusual group of guys. We all care. We work hard. Each one of us have a little niche that we like to work on.
So we've never talked about health clubs, and I see that you've got an initiative there.
Right.
I've got to ask, health clubs?
Health clubs, gyms, spas, whatever you want to call them. That's something that the Board of Health was looking at for a little while. There are a few in town, and when you come right down to it, everybody gathers at this gym. They do their exercise, they sweat, sometimes they cough and sneeze, and a lot can happen in a gym. It could be a microbiology lab, in the equipment that you're touching and whatnot.
I hadn't thought of the equipment. I was thinking of the showers, the changing
and that's
areas.
part of it, yeah. So from the equipment, you go to the showers, the changing area, and whatnot, and a lot would go on in a gym. So we wanted to make sure that each gym in town followed the same procedure or were unified in regards to health and sanitation, because you may find one gym cleaner than the other, or one gym has a little more sanitation requirements than the other one has. So while we were researching this, Albert, we found out that there really wasn't any regulations that would govern gyms, not only in Massachusetts, but I even looked across the country in various other states, and we couldn't find any. A lot of them went by their, let's say, trade association requirements, or a way to increase businesses to make the place clean and pristine and welcoming to your memberships and whatnot. But there was never any actual regulations that had any enforcement power. So that's when we went into it, and we talked about it for about several months. And what we did, we didn't reinvent the wheel at the time. We got various regulations from other areas, such as camps and swimming pools, housing, building codes and whatnot, and we put them all together to come up with this regulation here.
Now, you can tell by my rotund nature that I'm not a frequent gym dweller. But you mentioned the equipment. I had never thought about it, but I'm there. I'm using it.
Yep.
I'm sweating. I'm sneezing. Okay, then Kenny comes behind me.
And he touches, it's the same thing.
I mean, it's not like you can clean it in between or sanitize
Well,
it.
what
can
we
you?
ask for is that they do have some sort of a disinfectant at the various stations, or at least in the area, where you could at least spray and clean and do some sort of procedure to make it a little more clean.
I think most people that use it realize that when they're finished, they wipe off, there's towels and spray available, so they wipe off the areas that they've touched and are using, and that keeps it fairly well.
So at least make that available for the membership. Not only that, but have some sort of a schedule that you could show us, when we come in for an inspection, that the shower, locker room, toilet facilities have been cleaned and disinfected after so many hours. Another thing is the defibrillators, that we want people, at least one person on staff per shift has to be certified in first aid, CPR, and use the defibrillator, certified
So
in
it's
that.
kind of like you do at the restaurants where you have to have one certified
That's
person
where we
in
got
the
that
kitchen.
from.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Again, we more or less were innovative, where we had a combination of all the regulations that we were familiar with to put it into one to make this here. And like I said, you're doing the cardio work on the treadmill or the stepper and whatnot. You may get dizzy, your heart may be a little weak and whatnot. If you're going to have a heart attack or whatever, more than likely you're going to do it while you're exercising, as people do it when they're shoveling snow. So at least have somebody trained, and where time is of the essence, have somebody trained in CPR, first aid, and use that defibrillator.
Well, it makes perfect sense to have sanitizing agents available.
Sure.
Because even if I don't trust the person before me, when you're done to sanitize behind you, it's like using other facilities. I'm not going to trust anybody. I'm going to sanitize before I use them.
Right.
So if you got the spray and all there,
Yes.
And one of the other things that we try to implement in these regulations is using, some regulations from the camps for the children, where you have to have a Corey test and whatnot. I mean, a Corey background check and whatnot, because you have a lot of these nurseries or these child care facilities while the parents are working out. There's someone watching the kids. To make sure that they meet muster, that they don't have any criminal.
I hadn't even
background.
thought about that.
Yeah.
So they provide daycare. Well, not daycare, but child
Some
care.
child care.
So I can go exercise.
Right, and who's watching these kids? Is it somebody that could be who knows what, and that's why we want to have that, part of
Yeah,
our
I mean,
regulations.
something like
as well.
that, better to be double safe
Sure.
than once sorry.
Right.
Oh, and, it's funny because you never even think about.
And from what I understand, we're the only municipality in the area. I can even go on to say, not with a high degree of confidence, but with some confidence, that probably the only municipality in the country. Or maybe one of the few.
Put it this way, we're certainly not behind the curve.
No.
No, we're ahead of it.
When you think about some of the apartment legislation you put in or policies,
Right.
we weren't sure we were the head of the pack, but we certainly were up.
We were right up there.
We're up at the tip of the spear.
Sure we were. Yeah.
See, Al, that's what makes a difference when you have a board like us. We've got so much experience on it, and we've got a health officer here that's far the best you'll find anywhere.
Well, it's something that we always said, even on your show, many a times. It's a three-member board that's elected by the public. That, as you mentioned at the beginning of the program, has a tremendous amount of years of experience, and it's something that we wanted to show the public that we're not complacent. We're not there because we feel as though that we're entitled to be there. There's no entitlement at all. We want to earn the trust and in the respect of the voters to keep voting us in, or keep voting the three members in all the time. So we try to raise the bar every year. These are certain things that we like
Well,
to do.
just the fact that you're requiring or recommending Corey checks, to me, that's going to scare away somebody who you don't want watching over somebody's kids.
Right.
So once this person comes in and they apply for the job, then they find out they have to have a query check, they back out, they leave.
And good.
It's gone.
If there's ever a doubt,
Right.
because after all, these are our kids.
These are our kids, they're
These
our
are
future.
Milford kids.
Exactly
I
right.
mean, you feel the same way. Doesn't matter if they're your grandchildren, mine, or Lenny's, they're our kids.
Exactly right.
So anything you can put in place to make sure that they're, one, not safer.
Absolutely.
So you look at the equipment, and they spray it, they sanitize it.
And it's not only the part, whether it's disinfected or sanitized at all. That's part of it. But the other part of it is make sure it's working properly. Make
So I was
sure
going to
it
ask,
it
now
needs
the
repair.
operation,
Right.
do you look at like a routine maintenance
A
schedule?
routine maintenance schedule. If there's a certain exercise equipment where the padding's torn, where you can get cuts and whatnot, that we want that corrected. If there's cables and they're starting to fray, they have to be inspected and replaced. So it's not only the health part, but the safety part as well.
So now, we have chains in the area, I would assume.
Yes.
Do they look at you and say, who are you? Nowhere else in the country
Right.
do they come in and
Oh,
look at us.
absolutely.
Well, we
Yeah.
got a little pushback when we first did, even from some of the members.
Really?
What's the Board of Health getting involved in something like this for? Well, why not? I mean, when you explain, how, various other areas have regulations and why, from restaurants to housing to anything else. Why wouldn't a gym? Why wouldn't they have anything for, any type of regulations or guideline that somebody could follow for health, safety, and sanitation in a gym?
Now,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
could
when
come-
you
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, when you say it, that I'm there, I'm sweating, I'm sneezing all over the equipment.
Right.
It just becomes obvious.
It's obvious.
That I don't want somebody coming behind me.
We also have a regulation in a section of the regulations that if the management behind the desk sees someone coming in sick, just like in a restaurant, we got that same thing from the food code. And, you know, they're sniffling, they're sneezing, you know, they look like they're coming down with the flu. That manager or person in charge at that time has the ability now or the right to tell that person.
The obligation to
The
say-
obligation, you shouldn't work out and expose yourself to the rest of the population in this place. It's all enclosed too. It's not that they're outside, you know, I mean, they're all enclosed.
Well,
and
we'll
that's-
talk about the TB program, and that was all because of an airborne
overcrowding,
issue that
right.
Correct.
you have a lot of people in a closed space. Sure sounds like a gym.
It sure does, yeah.
So the equipment, not only operation, but cleanliness. You got showers and bathrooms, I would imagine.
Showers and bathrooms.
Are
they
no
have-
different than any
They
other.
have- They have to prove to us that they're on a schedule. You know, the
They have a
time, the
log.
date that they cleaned and disinfected them.
You have to
Yeah, I've
keep
been
that log.
amazed at how this new technology of bleach seems to be unknown to some of the hockey rinks I play
Yeah,
in.
right.
You know, you walk into a locker room and the odor obviously is not pleasant.
Right, yeah.
And you sit there for a little bit of bleach and water,
Yep.
you could solve a lot of, or
Exactly. And
curtail a lot of growth.
And you remember too, the MRSA outbreaks in various locker rooms in high schools because of sports. Same thing that can happen at a gym. You have that infection, and all of a sudden you're touching a certain equipment or you're laying down on something and
And
you
I come
touch
back.
it. Come back. The next guy comes over and he touches it and whatnot. He has a little sore in his hand that he got from the torn upholstery from the equipment beforehand. There you go.
So how many gyms do we have in
What do
town?
we got?
We got
Four.
Planet Fitness.
Yeah, Planet Fitness World's just opened again, Gold's Gym,
4.
and Midtown.
So there's a handful of them. It sounds good. Now, everybody knows the Board of Health from when you have, I don't want to say a blighted lot next to their house, but when you look out and say, I'm not real pleased at what's happening over there. What are you doing to keep up with that now?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because there's certain things that the Board of Health, or there's certain situations that the Board of Health can get involved with, and there's certain situations that we can't. One of the rules of thumbs that my board members told me too is we don't do ugly. You know, just so because something doesn't look well, you know, we don't work for Better Homes and Gardens, we work for the Board of Health. And that's something that we have to educate the public on too.
We had that big, in our neighborhood in Northern Virginia, when somebody came in and, I don't know where they got, we called it helicopter blue paint. Because when they painted their house,
Yeah.
you could be in a helicopter and see it.
Oh, yeah, we get complaints on colors of the homes too, but that's something that we
But
can't touch.
How can you go to somebody and say, I'm sorry, that color
Right.
doesn't
Right.
make
It
it?
doesn't make it, but anyway, you know, so that's something that we got to decide. Is there something on that property that could be or be a potential health hazard, something to make you sick? Is it a pile of decaying food, garbage, you know, that's causing flies and rats and things like that, or other vermin? Or is it just something that's ugly where there's a wood pile there that the guy's not straightening out?
But now, is it just a health hazard, or can it be a physical hazard? If I'm leaving wood with nails in it out in
Well,
the
that's
front
something that
yard.
we could probably
We
look
could
into.
address that on the
You know,
nuisance code.
We could address that on the, but,
Okay.
and that's why we do have a nuisance code under the building department. One of a prime example was we had a lot up on Whitewood Road, and the individuals were two elderly women, and they just didn't have the money or the time or the strength even, you know, to take care of their property at the time, and the weeds are overgrown, and we took it to court because they just couldn't do it, so we had to protect ourselves because the neighbors were, you know, getting restless, and we took it to court, and the clerk magistrate says he can't, you know, let this go any further, you know, meaning to the judge. And we go, why? Because he says it's something that is unsightly. It's not a health problem, you know, because we use the state we use the health code to address it. He goes, it's not, it's high grass. He goes, you go up the hill, you go up Bear Hill, you go into various wooded area. That's high grass, or that's land in its
So it
natural
doesn't
state.
pose an imminent threat to
Right.
either health or safety.
So it was more aesthetic. You know, it was more aesthetic, you know, than it was anything else. So we went back and we told Attorney Moody and in the, of course, the neighbors, and that's when the town came up with that idea of a nuisance bylaw. You can enforce something like that under the nuisance bylaw. We were using the health code to make
Okay.
people sick or hurt in some
Right.
way, prevent that. But the nuisance code now could have more teeth because now you can do aesthetics in use of property through zoning and
And the neighbors just couldn't take a lawnmower and go help the two
Yeah,
little old
well, I
ladies?
guess, well, they tried to hire somebody, it was too expensive and whatnot. They ended up finally selling the home in the...
That's what kills you. I mean,
Yeah.
you sit there and say, you know, Paulie, I just hope when we get that old and we can't,
Yeah,
that the neighbors will step in and
I
help.
know, and help them out, right,
You know, I
exactly.
could see if Kenny just won't do it. He's being, you know, kind of a
Yeah.
nasty old cuss, and he
Right.
just won't.
Right.
He can do it, he just won't. Okay.
You can borrow Kenny's goat.
Yeah, Kenny has
Buy him a
trouble with
goat,
water.
let the goat wander around the yard.
What we were, another example too, especially now with spring's coming, is the, let's say someone had a lot and they not only had high grass, but they had a pool that was abandoned. Now, that's something that's not only, you know,
Yeah.
not aesthetically pleasing, but it's also, that would be considered a potential health hazard and a health nuisance.
Well, there I can see.
Because
if
of the mosquito
The
breeding.
mosquito breeding
Right.
in the stagnant water.
And usually when they have a pool that's partially abandoned, there's a stairway going up to it that's broken. Maybe some of the neighborhood children go
kids
up,
can come
fall
in,
in,
right.
drowned or
So,
something.
you know, so just to give you the difference, the idea, you know, the tall grass as opposed to the ugly pool. We can
Yeah,
do something
no, but I
about
can
that.
see it if it's an imminent threat to either safety or health.
Right,
Physical safety or health, I could see a pool.
right,
Because kids, you know, kids will be kids.
right. You know, we had a few calls coming up saying, you know, there's a guy who was supposed to be fixing over his house for the past month, and all the wood's out there. What health, how can you get sick from that? You know what I'm trying to say? What's the health hazard?
No, I could
With
see
that.
that, it's stacked wood. Now, if he left wood that he pulled off and it had nails and
Nails,
stuff.
well, that's a potential
Sometimes these people
threat.
buy these trash bags. They're like dumpsters, but they're bags. They get them from the different hardware
you get 'em
stores.
from Home
And-
Depot and
Yeah, and they leave
Waste
them out there,
Management.
and they have to leave them over a certain amount of time to put this stuff in. And when they're out there, let's say a month, then the neighbors get nervous, start calling us, do something about it. Go up to the
Well,
court, and the judge says, you can't do that.
Well, yeah, well, they call us a lot too because we're the department that has the authority over rubbish pickup in our town, you know, so.
So now, when we talk about rubbish, for years, I mean, we've been doing better and better. We like the rates. You guys are negotiating good contracts. But it always seemed like segments of town. You know, not areas, but multifamily homes, and it was always talking about how they don't recycle, or you get multifamily homes where who knows which tenant left a mountain of stuff out in front.
Right.
Is that still an issue?
It is to a certain degree. What we've tried to do now is pin it on the landlords. If a tenant does something like that, leaves an excessive amount, which they shouldn't do, then we contact the landlord and we tell him he's responsible for it. And, you know, they come up with all kinds of excuses. Why? Well, the tenant left in the middle of the night or something. Doesn't matter. You're still responsible. You own the property. You're responsible.
You know, it's
for
like
it.
saying my son or daughter did it. Well, at the end of the day, you're still the parent. You're still the owner.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
what we also did too is we passed a regulation just about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
And the regulation does state, like what Kenny did say, it's now a regulation in town, or it's going to be within the next few weeks, that a property owner must now inform his tenants upon lease or rent, or even while they're here, you know, while they're even there after the lease, that of our programs that we have, a recycling program as well as the curbside pickup, in this different in the different specifications of that program, how much you can put out, how much you what you can put out, what you can't put out, in the mandatory recycling program that we have as well. I don't know if the camera can see this, but what triggered this off was, the picture I'm about to show the audience is a pile of rubbish that was left by one tenant. This is a 3-family home, by one tenant as they moved out that night. And as the other tenants were saying to the tenant doing that, you can't put out that much. Oh, the town will take it. They take everything. Again, someone who probably wasn't doing that on purpose, but thought the town would take it, so they weren't familiar with what our regulations are. And that's just
John,
one.
can you get a close-up shot on that picture?
And as you can see, that's one.
That's one tenant,
That's
one time?
One tenant, one time, expecting our rubbish company to pick all that up, plus 1,200 other stops. You know what I mean?
But what happens in something like that, Paul?
Well, something like that, we notified the property owner, and they did come out. Here's some more. Just let me just show the audience a few more, because I have a few more to show. Look at the TVs being left out. The one on the bottom, this is the roadside. As you can see, bikes and toys left out.
But now, wait a minute, a bike, would that not classify as one big item that you can leave out?
No, well,
So
that's
it's
metal.
just one.
Well,
It's
metal.
well, it's metal. So they wouldn't take that. And as you could see, here's some more. Now, all these were left out after the rubbish man went by, or the day after. So as you could see, and look at the blight that they're creating in that,
So
in
now,
that
okay,
neighborhood.
example number one, the rubbish truck pulls up. And there's a truck worth of rubbish sitting on the curb.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do?
They take their 4 bags or barrels, which is the requirement, and they leave the rest, and they call us up.
So now the rubbish guy's gonna call you and say, hey, guys, there's a ton left
There's a
over.
ton left there, it's a
I didn't
mountain.
pick up X amount at such and such an address, and this is why I didn't pick it up.
But they seem not always to enforce that, because I know around Christmas.
Well, they're a little more generous.
How would
Yeah.
you say, I know that I've put after Christmas Day
Yeah.
more than my 4.
Yeah,
Because the-
which is a good thing, but they know these aren't customers that constantly
Constantly
abuse
do
that.
that. Oh, okay.
Abuse that.
Because I was going to say, we've had our graduation parties. You went through it.
And they-
you
and
know
they-
you had more than
and-
4 bags that week.
And they understand that. They understand Christmas graduation in Milford especially. But this is something that, like Kenny was mentioning, and what we found most of all, and not to profile any particular type of property, but all that I've shown you with these pictures and all the complaints, not just, maybe 90%, all of them, 100% of those that we've gotten in the past several years have been the multifams. What's fortunate about it, when we do call the property owner to let them know it's either that day or the next it's taken care of. So what we'd like to do is, like I said, we made these regulations, which we're going to now inform the property owners, which we have that database because of Article 37, send them out with their renewals and whatnot, to let them know we have this regulation now, and it's their responsibility to educate their tenants of what our rules are, what we can put out, what we can't put
At
out.
the end of the day, it's your home.
It's your home, it's your neighborhood.
It's your
I mean,
responsibility.
your responsibility that if there's a mountain there, that you can't just leave it for another week.
No,
No.
no.
You
You're
can't just
collecting-
hope that they'll nibble at it for the next month.
Right.
You're collecting the rent, you're collecting an income from it. Spend some of that money to clean up, to make the neighborhood nice again.
And as you know too, we're one of the only municipalities that I can think of in the state of Massachusetts that actually picks up 3, 4, and 5-family homes. And they're businesses, they're not the same
Right.
apartment homes that it was when we were kids, or even prior to us even being born, when Uncle Joe and Uncle John came back from the war, and them and their new wives settled in their homestead where their dad and mom lived downstairs, they lived on each
Well, it was
floor.
all one big
It was
family.
all one big family. That's not like that anymore. A lot of your landlords are out-of-towners. They don't even live in town, but they do own the 3, 4, 5-family homes that they're getting darn good rent for. So it's more or less a business as opposed to a residential area. But that's something that the Board of Health understands, and we're...
And Paul, it would be different if the trash people were annoying. You know, if you got 4.1 bags, I'm leaving the
Yeah,
little
no,
bag
they're-
on the
they're-
side.
yeah.
But I know a couple times where, like I say, after Christmas or after the graduation, where I came home and as I take the corner, I'm like, oh, thank you, thank
you,
you.
right.
You know, and you want to leave a bottle down there the next week just to say, hey, guys,
Yeah.
I appreciate you not ratting me out. You know,
Yeah, no, they're very good like that. And we're fortunate. And how we can tell we're fortunate is when someone either moves out of town to another town or city and we get a call saying, we can't believe how generous
we had.
Milford is.
Yeah.
Or if you have a new resident moving into town, say, what's the deal with the trash?
yeah, where's my designer trash
And
bags?
who
Do I
do we
have to
pay?
buy?
And who do we pay? Who do we send our fee to? We said, no, it's off the tax base. They can't believe it.
Well, it was so funny because coming home from Holy Cross last weekend, I stopped at one of the Stop and Shops, and the woman just looked at me very nice and said, "Would you like to buy some trash bags?" And then it dawned on me,
Yeah.
these are the designer
Yeah,
bags.
right.
When my daughter lived in Worcester, there were these god-awful little yellow bags at $3 a pop or something.
Imagine that, yeah.
Al, you know,
Yeah.
we're fortunate. It comes off your tax base. Some of these towns, it comes off their tax base, plus they pay a service charge, and they have to purchase the bags also. So instead of costing them, I think it would cost us, what, $170, the
Probably
average
a
tax?
little more, yeah.
We'll say $180. Now it costs those persons that $180, plus another $250 6 months from now, then another $250, and then $2.75 a bag.
Are we getting better on the recycle? I mean, are people...
We're almost flat out
Yeah,
because of the
it-
weights of the plastics.
And like we mentioned before, especially when the last time I saw you at the Finance Committee, the heavy material,
Well, the newspapers.
the newspapers and glass,
I'm one of those old-fashioned homes, I still get three
still get the
newspapers
newspapers, right.
to the house. Of course, my kids look at me and say, here's a Nook.
yeah.
Yeah.
Read it on the Nook, and
You
I
read
just
it on the
can't.
Nook, right?
I
and
just
I
can't.
know, but there are a lot of people who do, which they're not buying as many newspapers and magazines as they used to, and that keeps the weight down. And again, you know, your glass bottles are being replaced
By
by
light plastic.
So the volume is there, but the weight is not. So one of the things that the Board of Health decided is let's think outside the box now. Let's see what heavy items that can be recycled that we could take out of the waste stream in Milford, such as mattresses, box springs. You know, there's a market for that. There's also a market for carpeting in the carpet backing, which we're looking into now. But there's also what we have also acted on now is the textiles.
Textiles
Clothing,
and shoes.
Clothing.
shoes,
recycling
pocketbooks, anything that's cloth. We would recycle
People
now.
throw clothes into the recycle bins?
No. This is going
we
to
have,
be.
at the transfer
Transfer
station,
station.
Oh, the transfer.
we have a container, a dumpster, that is specifically for clothing and shoes, and that's all recycled. And we also get paid for it. And we also wanted to put those containers in all of the schools, but we found out that the zoning, because the schools are all located in neighborhoods, that the zoning won't allow it because those containers are considered warehouses. And now our next move is to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and try to get those,
Exempt.
Variance at least for
a
that.
variance for
Because the
each
schools
one
are
of those.
interested. We had a meeting and we had the school committee, at least 3 members of the school committee there, the chairman, vice chairman, and another member, and they seemed very pleased with it because what they'll also do, the company will also give $100 a ton to the schools.
Oh,
You know, I mean, it's not going to, lower the tax bill, but it
no,
will
but
help.
it'll help with a Chromebook initiative.
Exactly.
Or some extra.
And it also show that the students about, teach them about recycling.
Well, I mean, if you make it convenient, I mean, let's face it, when
That's
do you
what it
go
is.
through the most clothes? When the kids are growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times you barely got use out of the clothes and now, you sit there and say, the son is too big, it doesn't fit in
Doesn't fit
anymore.
Right.
So if I've got to drop him or her off at school, what an easy way to just,
Perfect. It's perfect. Yeah. And there are several districts in the area that this particular company services that have very good success with it.
yeah, it's a natural. Either that or if you can't get it to schools, maybe at the ball fields.
Well, you also have that like Planet Aid and a few others, but this here would be specifically for
Yeah,
the
but
town of
aren't
Milford.
those a business?
Yeah.
Planet Aid,
Yeah, they are.
yes,
I could see some residents complaining, saying, it's a business.
yeah.
But if I'm doing it, like when I gave to the Salvation Army or somewhere, I'm not really giving it for a profit.
Right, exactly.
So if you put something on the school that isn't a profit generating, or some of the money goes back to the school.
This company that we have, they pride themselves on more of a company that gives back to the community rather than just take out. They take the clothing, they wash it, they clean it, they look at it, whatever can be sized or used again, they'll distribute it to somewhere. Companies like Planet Aid, they just sell it off as rags or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you forget in our own town that there's a percentage of people that could use a little extra help.
Of course.
Sure.
And some of the clothes that you didn't wear out, you just grew out of, could really help some families.
Sure it could. Yeah.
And, this company does that based on the information they gave us.
So what our goal is to get one at each school and see how it goes. And at least we're getting, whatever tonnage we have, that we generate from these bins, that's less tonnage we have to pay for at the incinerator.
And these bins are designed that you can't throw trash in them. They have a special way that they can put the clothing in it, flip it, and
Yeah,
it
it's the
stays
ones you
closed.
got to push.
No, it's in a roller system.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Yes.
because I've seen them where I'm starting to push up.
You have to put them in a bag, and then you set them on this platform, and you lift the bar up, and it dumps
Dumps
into
it
the...
over.
And it's narrow. It's not a big
Right.
opening.
People would put trash in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh man, I hate to think that somebody.
Well, we
before
haven't
Ian's would do that.
an experience with it yet, because we only have that container at the transfer
Well, you're not going to do it at the
station right
transfer
now.
station with
No.
somebody watching you,
Right.
obviously.
And why would you if you have trash and
You
you're
got
at
the
the
trash right
transfer
there, right?
station, then you can throw it in the proper bin.
But the recycle is at a acceptable level, you think?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Yes.
at a very acceptable level. But we'd like to get more participation in the multifams, which is one of the reasons why in those regulations we were talking about earlier, we do more or less put the onus on the property owner to ensure that their tenants are recycling.
I mean, that seems easy. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Those are the
I'm
houses.
sorry, if you don't help us, we're not going to pick up.
Right, exactly. That's something that we do have that.
I mean, you hate to take a stick to somebody, but you sit there and say, wait a minute, it's not fair to the other 27,999 people in Milford that if one isn't carrying their weight, we're paying for it.
Right.
That's the problem with the multifams. They don't recycle. They just take it, throw it away. I'm done with it. I don't need it anymore. So you and I, we recycle because we know the value of recycling.
And I guess I'd ask the question, why don't we do something about it?
Well, that's why with these
That's-
regulations, we're trying to tackle that. And
So,
there's
I
a
mean,
fine for it.
you had people following the dumpster guys to see who recycles and who doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I always thought the idea there was, you
was
guys
an
sent
audit.
out a nice letter
Yes.
saying, Kenny, please recycle. Kenny, you didn't recycle again. But after a number of times, your patience runs thin and says, guess what? We're not picking up your trash anymore.
Exactly. Yep.
We have
So-
the capability of fining, and then on the third time, we can suspend
Right.
trash pickup.
So now I hear there's new things with nurses.
At the senior center.
Yeah.
We now have a nurse that's there twice a week at the senior center, and to aid the senior citizens in any way they can, whether it be questions on their medications or they're not feeling well, and should they be doing this, or what they should be doing. So there's a nurse there that it comes on. It's a Board of Health nurse that we have at the senior center.
So you're
Not-
covering that in your normal budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Like the VNA type thing?
Well, what we did is when we renegotiated the contract with the VNA, it went down, quite some money. And that's when we mentioned to the Finance Committee, if we could keep that money, instead of giving it back to general fund, if we could keep that and do other things with it, And that's one of the things that we're doing with it.
That program has grown leaps and bounds.
Yes,
And if they
doing
want a
well.
blood pressure taken, the nurse will give it to them. And you bring their medication in, they'll go over every bit of your medication, what you should be taking, not.
Side
what the-
effects and all that.
Yeah.
See, that's a population that, you know, as we all know, we're getting there, that sometimes is overlooked too. You know, there a lot of concentration on the youth, you know, and the childhood obesity and this and that, and smoking and whatnot as you get older, the adolescent. But very little is being actually, you know, targeted with our seniors. You know, and one of the things that we've also, the nurses trained in too, is like dentures. You know, a lot of times their dentures don't fit. They get, you know, oral health is a very good part of public health, you know, a very important part of public health. So that's something that they also, like I said, it's a program that it's very well accepted by the seniors. Sue Clark is very proud of it because of the people that just who go to the senior center just can't stop talking
Well, I mean,
about
you
it.
think about it, these are the people who built Milford.
Exactly, they're the ones.
You know, I mean,
Right.
we're here because of a lot of them.
Exactly.
You know, and you
Right.
look back and you say, not all families, I mean, we've had the discussion, the Italians, the Portuguese, it's all the same. It's that European mentality that you take care of your own.
Right.
But there are some people who can't.
Right.
So if you can make one senior a little more comfortable because they're not able to go home and talk about their dentures or get a little extra help, boy, that seems like a pretty cheap price.
It is.
To pay.
It's very good.
You know,
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have people like the VNA and you know, the pool of talent that we could
and it's going to
tap
be
into.
hard.
Yeah,
I mean,
we-
it's, you know, you're talking about personal hygiene issues or whatever. You're not just going to go out and talk to any stranger.
No.
So if it's the same VNA person there all
Yeah,
the
it's
time,
the same one.
Exactly.
She has an office too. It's a private one, so people can see them. And like I said, you get some of these seniors who they get a lot of anxiety or they're feared, you know, to go to the doctor and sit down, or they don't have the time to go to the doctor.
don't
Who's
have the
going to
money.
take them?
They don't have
or
the
the
money.
money.
Today,
Yeah.
when
know?
you look at some of these people who are living on $1,200, $1,300 a month on Social Security,
I
Right.
don't know how they can do it.
I'm
can't
amazed.
understand how
I
they
am
can do it.
absolutely amazed. You know, when you say you do a little bit extra at the senior center to help, all I'd say is God bless,
Yeah.
because $1,300 or $1,400, I don't know where it goes. How do you stretch it that far?
Exactly. And we
Impossible.
put this program in place about 5 months ago, and the feedback we have received is enormous. I mean, they just love it. They love the program, and they use it. They really use it, a
Well,
lot
I
of
mean,
them.
when Sue Clark,
Yeah.
when Sue Clark comes up with programs, I mean, I got up, I said, we can't vote against this. It's like voting against your mother. You know, when they wanted the exercise room and all.
Oh, yeah, right.
You know, we can growl and snarl of how it's done, but at the end of the day, you know. You gonna vote against your mother? I don't
no,
think
you
so.
can't, yeah.
Or you gonna vote against his mother?
mom, yeah.
Right? I mean, you grab you by the ear, you know, like
right.
they used to when we were in the Heights.
Yeah, I know.
You know, you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
These people grew up that it was an extended family.
Right.
So, you know, voting against his mother's like voting against your own.
Well, you know, they deserve it.
Yeah.
You know, they raised us, not us particularly, but you know what I mean? They
No,
brought
but
us.
they raised us. They raised the generation of Milford kids.
Correct.
Who are now old Milford people.
Right.
I'm junior, never mind.
TB was a big thing for a while. You know, and overcrowding, airborne transmission.
Right.
I remember you had to put in supplemental money to make sure that nurses
That's right.
confirmed compliance.
That's right. We needed a lot of money. We were paying like $28,000
a
at
year.
one time, and then the nurses came and says, we have so many cases that we have to actually oversee the direct observation therapy that they needed to make sure that they're taking their medication. At night they had to come. They needed an interpreter. They needed protection in some cases, and our bill went from $28,000 to $65,000. You know, so right now it seems to be okay. We've worked with the Milford Hospital, Milford Regional Hospital, to get a TB clinic, We also have the Senator Edward Kennedy Center, which is also very in tune to tuberculosis as well. So that seems to be under control. We have a sporadic case here and there. I think right now as we speak, maybe 2 to 3 active cases right now. But what I like to do is tell our nurses when you see them, and we get their names, and we'd like to, then I cross-reference that with the nursing staff at the schools to make sure if there's an individual or student with the same family that's affected,
Watch them.
to make sure they're okay. And many a times, or all the time so far, they've been on the therapy as well. So that really helps us out, which leads us to the tuberculosis screening program that the Board of Health instituted at the schools about a year ago.
A year ago, yeah.
We did that where we felt as though we didn't want to profile any one particular group, where we do have our share of international students in our school system. So what we did is we had a screening, and not so much screening with the actual test, but a screening as an application form. And there's certain questions that the nurse or pediatrician can ask, where if you were visiting a country that has a high prevalence of tuberculosis.
The political correctness and how you handle it, I know is important. But I'm sorry, if I just came back from Saudi Arabia, you're not going to worry about me having Zika virus. It's dry, it's hot, the virus doesn't live there.
Right.
If I came from certain parts of South America, yes, everybody's worried about the Olympics and how are people going to deal with the Brazilian geography. So I have no problem saying, look, we should watch for people who visited this area or who come from this area.
Right.
Not as a horrible, it's
No.
those immigrants,
Right.
No.
To protect them as well as the rest of the individuals. So that's what we did in the school committee. We presented it to the school committee, and they accepted it unanimously. So that was in play this year, where the nurse would screen them, their pediatrician or whoever, primary care physician, would then decide whether they should go further with an actual test.
Right. But see that, when you think about, we're voting an extra 40 grand years ago on the TB. It's to take care of all the kids in Milford. Because it's only a certain group. It's like, no. They're going into a classroom of 24. They're going into a cafeteria of 100. If you're not taking care, you will have an epidemic.
Well, and especially you being in the lab field, you know darn well if there was an exposure in the school, what that would cause. Even one person who's known to have active TB was walking down the halls of Milford High, would have to inoculate everyone that came in contact with that kid, or was in the hallway at the same time that particular student was
The
there.
emotional strain alone.
And
you
the
think about
the
it.
time for the testing that has to be done.
If you found out your child was in a room, down at Memorial or Brookside especially, because they're
Yeah.
little kids and they touch and,
Sure.
it's just what kids do.
Right.
You read that in the paper and you're going to have those 24 other parents in that room freaking out.
Right. And also
And
the
you can't
path,
blame 'em.
and also the path that student took to come to each class and whatnot.
Or if the student rode in the school bus.
School bus, exactly.
The school bus is particular.
Sure.
Or they played a sport, or at the end of the day,
You can go off
everything
forever.
is so integrated that you can't isolate
Right.
anybody.
No.
You really can't. Question, sharps. We hear about sharps. Is it a problem?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Well, it was a problem until the Board of Health got involved. You guys want to talk about that?
Sure. We contacted a company out of Sutton that provides us with a container. And anybody can come down, put the shops in a Tide bottle or anything, any hard plastic, wrap it up, or a shop's container.
Well, the old days, it was take a bottle, throw some bleachy, 10% bleach in water,
Yep.
put a cap on it, throw your sharps in there, because that environment, the chlorinated environment that it's held in is going to kill anything.
Sure would, yeah.
But
The Department of Public Health says you can't do that anymore.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you got bleachy water,
Yeah.
which any safety data sheet will tell you you don't want
floating
and
around
then
everywhere.
what do you do with them even after that? So now we will take them at the transfer station. They have to bring them down in a container, as Lenny mentioned.
Puncture-proof.
Puncture-proof. And we have containers there that they can just,
But how do I get a container? I mean, rather than have me improvise, if I'm generating sharps and I want to be compliant,
You can purchase them to CVS, any of the drugstores have them.
you can just go to a drugstore and say, I'd like a sharps container.
Sure.
Sure. And they're not a lot of money, $3, $4, $5.
For $3 or $4,
Yep.
for a cup of coffee, well,
Or-
same as my coffee.
Yeah.
Or if you don't even want to pay the $3 or $4, you can use a puncture-proof container like Kenny and Lenny were saying. You can get a detergent bottle, with the hard plastic in the screw cover. Put them in there, screw the cover on, tape it over, and
But don't put anything in there, no more bleach.
no more
No,
bleach,
nothing.
because that goes into the container at the transfer station. And everything's free of charge. You don't need a sticker to drop your shops off. There's no fee for that either. So, I mean, we try to make it as convenient and as affordable as we possibly can for the individuals who use shops.
So, if you want a fancy container, go to the local
Yeah.
Yeah.
pharmacy, pay your $3 or $4. If not, keep a soap, detergent.
Right.
And just
What's
throw
nice
it in.
about this company that we have, they're not expensive, considering what they're disposing of. They come, maybe, we empty it once a month,
Yeah, I think it's usually around, $50, $60 per
it's $45,
per
yeah.
container.
Yeah, it's a
They
5-gallon
fill
container.
up pretty fast. We do
But
them like maybe
Lenny,
3 or 4 a month.
That to me goes in the who cares. One employee at the transfer station gets harpooned.
Yeah.
And I don't care, what I mean by who cares is I don't care if it's $40, $50. Risking one employee.
That's right.
I mean, we had in the lab, somebody put a syringe through her thumb. And we were working on not so pleasant agents. Oh my God, what we had to go through to make sure, and we're happy to do it. But it wasn't anything about exposure or anything, you're worried about the person.
Right.
So, whether they charge us 50 or $100, if you're not putting people in danger,
2 years ago, when state law said that you can't throw them in the trash anymore because people were getting stuck with the needles, we had one of the trash pickers, he got stuck with the needle. When that happens, the trash truck stops right there on the spot. And then the whole team of people from DEP, Department of Public Health, comes out. They track where the trash came from, and they have to sanitize the truck, empty into another truck and sanitize it.
and again, I think that's great, but I'm more worried about the guy
Who got
Yeah.
stuck?
who got stuck. That's the biggest worry for me is, okay, yes, it could screw up your budget. You got to pay for a cleaner, trucker, and all that good stuff. Great.
Yeah.
No, but
But if it's in my bloodstream,
Yeah, right. Now what?
that's,
what I was getting at, it's safer this way than that way. Everybody's safer. It's a safer environment for everyone.
it's the same thing with the flu clinics. You all still do the flu clinics,
sure,
right?
Yeah, we had a very successful year this year.
Yeah.
We had 4 of them, and we had about maybe a little over 400 show up, compared to the years prior. The only year that we came a little more than that was during the H1N1.
H1N, everybody freaked out.
Everybody freaked out, and we not only had the H1N, but we also had the annual flu vaccine, and it was good. We had 4. We had well over 100 per clinic, so that went well.
Now, am I hearing you're getting involved in porta potties too?
Oh, that was all because of the Heights area.
Oh, the one porta potty near our,
Yeah, near the.
near the monument.
near the monument.
Yeah,
We spend all this
right.
money on a monument, you put a poopy potty
Yeah.
right
And the
next
monument's
to it.
gone now.
Yeah, the,
The gazebo.
The
The
gazebo.
gazebo's gone, the
Well,
monument's still there.
Yeah.
right.
I was gonna say, Mayor, you took away our monument?
Yeah, no, I got the gazebo down, I just want to put the monument there too, another one. Well, maybe that can hide the porta toilet. But, yeah, that was, some of the neighbors of that area were complaining about it, including the one across the street. Right? And from there, with the Board of Health decided to come up with some recommendations, not so much of a regulation, but recommendations. And that way there, we extended that to even somebody who's doing like a construction site as well, so they have a little more care, of where they would place it.
So it's really not dealing with the porta potty itself, it's just,
We already have regulations for that. you
yeah,
know,
we already,
Yeah.
This is just
where
this
you
is just
put, don't put it out in
this
front
is
of our
this is
monument.
Yeah, this is just for the placement of it.
And it has to be so many feet from a resident.
resident, right.
So that it's, we
And
don't
then
get residents calling up and saying, all I did, all night long, I smelt this thing.
Yeah, we want to make sure that there's no nuisance, with odor and.
Right.
But I would
whatnot.
think you have enough regulations, the chemicals will keep,
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah, there is.
I think it's more just, I'm looking at a potty next to
Yeah.
Grandpa's name. Can't you move it,
Yeah, move it a little.
move
more.
it 10 feet further
Yeah.
down, away
Right.
from Grandpa?
Yeah.
Well, when you get 3 mayors here alone, see,
You got 3 mayors. You got 3 mayors here.
that's what I said, 3 mayors.
You're right, yeah.
I was gonna say, but there is a sensitivity there.
Probably should explain to your audience what we're talking about.
Paul, what, you're mayor, you're the mayor now?
That's right, that's right, yeah. When
Yeah,
I
it's,
say that the three
the
mayors-
Prospect Heights
the Prospect Heights
Association
Mayors
has
Association.
mayors that they elect or appoint. It could be either.
An honorary mayor is usually
Yes,
appointed.
appointed, and they do that on a yearly basis, and we probably have like 55 living mayors right now, somewhere around
No,
there.
maybe less.
20 living, we're
Yeah.
at about 55 mayors.
In all, 55 in
okay.
all.
I mean, 55 in all, but there's probably,
It's only 20 living?
Because I'm the 55th.
I was gonna say, there's number
I'm the
55.
55, yeah.
So we're probably half are still alive and active. But the issue was, there was a nice monument put there was a gazebo that one of the mayors put up, and there was a porta potty.
Right.
And it was more just, can't you move the porta
Yeah.
potty away?
Exactly. So that's what that was all about.
And I hear there was a shred-a-thon?
In fact, we're looking to have another one.
Yes.
We had one last October, and it was the board's idea to get a company to come over to the transfer station 3-4 hours, and that way they would give the residents an opportunity to shred important documents that they feel as though are important enough not to throw with the regular rubbish, and to ensure that they're shredded. And what was good about that, the company that we had, ProShred
ProShred.
was their name, and they had the shredder right there, but it also had a video, monitor out there, so you could actually see your documents go into the shredder, actually get shredded out and spit into the basket. So.
It was
Well,
so
in today's day and
successful.
age, anything that has key identifiers,
Right.
I mean, God forbid you leave your social security number on documents.
No, sure.
But there's other key.
Just credit card numbers and all that there. And the board is thinking of, well, right now we're working on getting another one. Come the middle of spring, end of spring, early summer. And the only trouble with that is they're becoming so popular that, we're trying to be, we actually went to 2 others as well as ProShred. And we're trying to get the earliest date. And the earliest date so far is sometime in June that we could probably talk about at our next meeting and get them going.
Yeah, it was so successful that at the end of 4 hours that we booked them for, people were still lined up outside to use it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the reason why the board wants to have another one, is because people have been calling up, when you're going to have another one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
No? Same thing with the transfer station, what's it, the hazmat day?
We have a hazardous waste day, the first or second Saturday of November.
Yep.
This year, we did over 9,000 pounds of hazardous waste was taken out of the waste stream and legally disposed of. And that's free of charge. As you could just read the paper, most of your cities and towns around the area charge at least $45 per vehicle. But because of the success of the transfer station and the generosity of the finance committee, we are able to support this ourselves.
Yeah, but Paul, think about it, generosity, smosity. Too many people would go in the
Oh,
backyard
absolutely.
rather
Or
than pay
in
$10.
a storm drain or
Or a
wherever.
storm drain,
Yeah.
I mean, they got the little fishies there, not because people were not throwing bad things down the storm drain.
Right.
So, I mean, you're just
And that all
saving
winds
our
up-
aquifer.
Right. It all winds up either in the groundwater or into the Charles River.
That's right.
Yeah, one way or another, it's going into our aquifer.
Right.
You know, so taking the chemicals and incinerating them instead of trying to dilute them
Right.
Yeah.
just seems to serve all of us. Any big initiatives coming now?
Well, we got so far we have 3, it's only April, and so far we've accomplished 3. We upped the age of tobacco products and electronic cigarettes and any nicotine delivery product to 21. That started April 1st. We had the landlord and tenant regulations regarding that, and we had one more. That slips my mind.
But even those tenants, if you think about all you went through, you know, it was always funny that you're prejudiced against immigrants.
Right, right.
Look at your last name and where your family came from. We
Exactly.
were all immigrants.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, you know, you can't be prejudiced against your own grandmother.
We cannot.
I mean,
Right.
she'd whack you from
Right.
above. But it seems to have now been accepted and just you never hear about it anymore.
Right. Exactly. You know.
I mean, that's what you guys had said. It would take a number of years.
Right.
Right.
And it'll quietly just go away.
But again, that's something we always have to watch too, you know, for the illegal conversions and overcrowding. You get, you know, your sporadic cases here and there, but they're investigated and corrected.
But again, if I remember, it had nothing to do with who was living in the house.
No,
No,
nothing
no.
to do with that at all.
It's the
Right.
3 kitchens worth of electric that could cause fires.
Yeah, health and safety
It's the
hazard.
overcrowding that the TB could spread.
Right,
And
right.
actually, these regulations are a benefit to the tenants.
tenants.
So if the tenants are immigrants, it's not like we're persecuting them. We're actually protecting them, because that's what those regulations do. They protect their environment that they're living in.
And they protected their neighbors and the kids in school. I mean, my hat was off to you guys that you were ahead of the curve again.
Right, right.
Well, as always, thank you. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, as we come to a close, may God bless. May tomorrow be a healthier day than today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for
Thank you very
taking
much.
care of us.
Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just